right, good evening, folks. My name's Adam Wason.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, folks. Adam Wason, Public Works Director for the City of Bloomington. It is Tuesday, December 17th, 2024, 5:29 p.m. going on 5:30. This is the regularly scheduled Board of Public Works meeting. We're in Council Chambers, room 115 at City Hall in the Showers building here on North Morton Street. We also have an active Zoom link for anyone that needed to attend online. If you are attending online, we would ask that if you have public comments to be made on anything not on the agenda, you would do that under petitions and remonstrances. And then for any of the agenda items, just use the raise hand or chat function, and we'll make sure that your comments get read into the record or allow you to do so yourself. Otherwise, it is 5:30 p.m. We have a lengthy agenda tonight, 21 new business items, which is probably double what we're normally used to. So just for any staff, just in your staff reports, just trying to be real brief and to the point with staff reports, and then the board can ask the questions that they may have. And otherwise, I'll turn it over to Kyla Cox-Deckard, Board President for the Board of Public Works.
Thank you. I call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Public Works this Tuesday, December 17th of 2024. Let's see. First up, we did open several sealed bids yesterday during our work session. Next, we have messages from board members. Do we have any messages from the board this evening? All right, seeing none. Next, we have petitions and remonstrances. This is the opportunity, if we have any members of the public who would like to make public comment on items that are not on our agenda this evening, now is the chance to do so. If you are using Zoom, you can use the raised hand function or the chat function to let us know you'd like to make a comment. And if you're present in the room, you can approach the microphone. All right, seeing none. Next, we have the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, we have approval of minutes for November 19th of 2024. Resolution 2024-081, Freeze Fest. Resolution 2024-083, Renew Mobile Vendor Community Kitchen of Monroe County. A noise permit, a Hanukkah Festival of Lights, public menorah lighting. Outdoor lighting service agreement with Duke Energy on West 2nd and College Avenue, and approval of payroll. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda this evening? All right. Do we have any public comment on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda for tonight's meeting of December 17th, 2024.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Carone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next, under new business, we have Addendum 2 to agreement with American Structure Point for on-call traffic engineering services.
Engineering Department. This is an existing contract with American Structure Point. It includes work such as traffic signal timing, traffic simulations, and other similar tasks. Work is completed on an on-call basis. The current contract amount is $50,000. This amendment would increase that total to $75,000. Staff has reviewed the contract and supports its approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item? Any public comments on this item?
No comments on Zoom.
All right, seeing none. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve Addendum 2 to the agreement with American Structure Point for on-call traffic engineering services.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Carone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is the MOU with CBU for Winslow.
Neil Copper again. This is related to a project that you'll hear more about later in the agenda when we award the construction contract. But as part of the project for resurfacing on Winslow and Rogers, we'll be installing green infrastructure stormwater treatments for the City of Bloomington Utilities Department. This memorandum of understanding outlines the payments that CBU would make towards that work. The Utility Service Board has already approved the agreement, and staff recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
Can you give us a general idea of the location of the green infrastructure facilities?
Yeah, so it's On the north side of Winslow, near Xavier Court, just on the east side of Xavier Court, in the northeast quadrant of that intersection, there's some space to put in a rain garden.
Thank you.
Any public comments on this item?
No comments on Zoom.
All right, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the MOU with CBU for Winslow.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Crone,
Aye.
Roach,
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next is contract for Winslow, Rogers, Allendale to Sayre resurfacing project for Milestone Contracting LP.
Jason Kerr with Engineering. This project will provide asphalt resurfacing, excuse me, on Winslow Road and Rogers Road between Allendale and Sayre Road. There is improvements to the roundabout at Winslow High, Rogers as well. I want to make sure that is aware that there is a 45-day hard closure for that roundabout for the construction to take place within the 120-day project. There will be also lane closures throughout the project as well. Engineering recommends that Board of Public Works award the project to Milestone. They are the most responsible bidder, and their bid amount is $1,340,000. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions from the board?
With the 45-day closure, we're obviously going to target the summer months when school's out?
Correct. In
Yep.
here, it is stated they have to do it between May 24th and August 1st. So in that school zone, or school area, yes.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Will there be access to the park that is off of the roundabout?
I believe they're working on some access to the park. I'm not sure about vehicular. I know pedestrian traffic should be able to still respond and go through the park as well.
Okay, so there may be other alternative approaches to people maybe parking for that access to the park?
Correct.
Other questions on this item?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, just wanted to make sure we didn't mislead you on that. I think the closure at the roundabout, it's unlikely that there will be motor vehicle access to that small parking lot. There is a separate parking lot to the park further south that would, of course, be open. But during those 45 days, it's likely that that parking lot would be fully closed. There would still be pedestrian bicycle access to that area.
Okay, so people who are wanting to visit the park will be maybe directed by signage to the other parking area.
So that, and we've also coordinated with the Parks Department that the Childs Elementary School nearby, that they may coordinate with them and have direct people to park in that empty parking lot in the summer and then be able to walk down, which is a little bit further, but another way to provide access.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for Winslow Rogers from Allendale to Sayre resurfacing project for Milestone Contracting LP.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone,
Aye.
Roach,
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, we have approved change order package 2 for downtown street maintenance.
Jeremy with Engineering. Change order 2 for the downtown paving project. Let's start off with change order number 5. This will be for the brick pavers on 4th Street near Grant. There was not a pay item in the bid when they bid the job, so we had to add that in there. To reinstall the bricks was $8,765.25. Change order 6 was to add 5 days to the deadline because of all the IU games and the other events going on in town. We had them slow some of the work down. There was no cost for that. Change order 7, that was for the overage of asphalt items for the whole entire project. That was an amount of $42,366.20. The original price was $1,997,075. With the previous change orders, brought the amount to $2,052,481.14. And after change order 5, 6, and 7, the final cost right now would be $2,103,612.59.
Thank you. Questions on this item? Any public comments?
None on Zoom.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve change order package 2 for downtown street maintenance.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next, we have preliminary contract with Etika Group for the Crosswalk Safety Improvement Project Phase 3.
Kendall Kanoki Engineering, Etika Group was selected out of 7 respondents to our RFP for this project. And we are starting the preliminary engineering with them for a not-to-exceed amount of $278,608. This will handle the design of the Crosswalk Safety Improvements Phase 3. This is building on Phases 1 and 2. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the board? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the preliminary contract with Etika Group for the Crosswalk Safety Improvement Project Phase 3.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is contract for Second Street tree clearing with J.R. Ellington Tree Experts.
Hello, this is Zach Rogers with engineering. This project is for removing trees along the proposed West 2nd Street Modernization and Safety Improvements Project. It's planned next year, hopefully. These bids were from the work session, and JR was selected as lowest bidder at $23,862. And engineering is recommending that we award this project to them.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this?
Can you give us a general idea of this modernization project? I mean, what does modernization mean? Are we talking about sidewalks and curb ramps and paving or
Okay.
or
I'll
something
let
more?
Kendall will answer that. That's actually his project coming up.
Yeah, the West 2nd Street project, this is a federally funded project, so this is a complete reconstruction of West 2nd Street from Walker all the way to the B line. This is the tree removal contract for that project, which we have to do before the bat nesting season starts in 2025. But this is being let through NDOT, so it's a federally funded project. But the reconstruction includes new protected bike lane along the street, new storm drainage, new 10-foot sidewalk on the former hospital site, new traffic signals, new bus rapid transit, bus platforms, all kinds of new street lights, all kinds of improvements like that. So it truly is a full reconstruction of the roadway.
Great. For some reason in my head, I had a different section of Second in my mind. And then the trees that are going to be removed, they're current street trees, or are there any that are on property that's being purchased as right away?
Most of them are street trees. There are a few on property that we are purchasing, yes.
And the larger plan includes, I assume, new trees too?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And so this is somehow connected also to the Hopewell development, you said from Walker to the B line?
Yeah, so this is technically a separate project, but it's adjacent to the Hopewell redevelopment. So on property that the city owns, we're able to go ahead and, build out the full road cross-section we'd like to. So that's why the 10-foot path is coming. But along other properties that are already existing with historic retaining walls and more constricted right-of-way, we're just reconstructing the sidewalk as it is. So no
Okay.
changes there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for Second Street tree clearing with J.R. Ellington Tree Experts.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is contract for East 3rd Street Protected Bike Lane Phase 2 with Milestone Contracting LP.
Jeremy with engineering again. This is the East Third Street Protected Bike Lane, Phase 2. Phase 1 was completed earlier this year. They'll be adding more barriers along the 3rd Street between Indiana and South Rose Avenue. Some of them that are currently there are going to be replaced with the smaller barrier delineators. Had 3 bids on it. E&B come in at $39,139. Milestone come in at $107,500. Kreider and Kryer's $178,495. After you see the difference in numbers, I called and spoke with E&B, and they did not include the price of purchasing the delineators. That's why their price is so cheap. And the reason why they did not do that is there was a little discrepancy on the plan set, but also they done the job earlier this year, and we provide them, so there was a little bit of confusion. So, so then Milestone was the one that actually bid the job with purchasing them. So that is, wouldn't say E&B was actually disqualified, it's just a little overlooked. So, but that's how it's worded. So, but Milestone, we recommend awarding it to them for the $107,500.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
Are the separation barrier, will it be put in extended to rows similar to what's there?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so not an additional barrier?
No, it'll be the new phase will be
The
just like what
small.
is now, but
Great.
just extended.
Okay.
And then unsure when this project will start. They could start at, winter time, whatever, kind of work with Milestone on that.
Question,
Yes.
looking at the map. So that section is two-way traffic, is that right? And the section where the existing protected bike lane is one-way traffic. So are we talking about both sides of the street? Okay. I got a head nod.
Yes,
over here.
that is correct. The last section on the east end is where it's two-way, and we'll be doing some on the south side, some on the north side.
And that's all within the existing curb-to-curve pavement?
Yes, correct.
Hi, good evening. Alex Bradwood, City Legal. I just wanted to mention before you guys make a decision on this that per statute, whenever the board is awarding a contract that wasn't the lowest bid, the board needs to specify the factors that are listed under the statute. So I've kind of outlined what the factors are in the memo. And under this fact pattern, it seems like the determining factor will be factor number 1, whether it complies with the specifications for the bid.
So basically, just to clarify, this highlighted portion of the staff report needs to be clarified when we make the motion.
Down one more page.
Okay.
Let me get to the staff report. Which one?
On page 199?
Oh, this is a different one, maybe. Let me look.
Staff report that includes, Alex just said. So do we need to verbally include some of your language from your staff report when we do the motion?
Yes, that would be ideal because the factor that's determining has to be in the minutes for the board meeting.
Okay. Are there any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
All right, tell me if you'd like me to rephrase this, please. I move that we approve the contract for the East Third Street Protected Bike Lane Phase 2 with Milestone Contracting LP due to the board disqualifying E&B Paving for their oversight in their bid package. And therefore, the board is able to award the contract to the next lowest responsible and responsive bidder.
That was pretty good. I would just say that it failed to conform in all respects to the specifications. That's the language in the first factor per statute.
Okay, so let's try this again. I move that we approve the contract for the East Third Street Protected Bike Lane Phase 2 with Milestone Contracting LP. And the board is disqualifying the bid for E&B Paving as they failed in their specifications.
Failed to meet the specifications of the bid package.
They failed to meet the specifications of the bid package.
Second.
All right. We have the motion and the second. I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard? Aye. Motion passes.
Miranda, when you do minutes for that, if you could please not make me sound ridiculous.
Use her verbiage.
She cleaned up my my reading of the dollar amounts last time pretty good. It didn't take her 13 efforts, so she'll be good.
All right, the next item is lane and sidewalk closure for various locations for True Line infrastructure.
Hi, Kyle Ball, Engineering. True Line Infrastructure is looking to extend two previously permitted areas in the vicinity of Smith and Third. They were originally delayed from completing this area because of utility relocations and the NDOT project that was going on there during the summer. So again, 7 to 10 days, expecting to take a little less than that even, but just to factor in weather delays, things like that. The aim is to have this completed by end of year. Happy to take any questions.
Questions from the board?
Just to clarify, end of year 2024 or end of year 2025?
Fair question, 2024.
Okay, so 7 to 10 days, meaning just the rest of the calendar?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course, January would be worst case.
Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the lane and sidewalk closure for various locations for True Line infrastructure.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Next is lane and sidewalk closure on West Kirkwood and North College for Duke Energy.
Kyle Ball, Engineering again. Duke Energy is requesting the closure or closures for lane closures for the northern lane and sidewalk of West Kirkwood, and then the eastern lane and sidewalk of North College Avenue for a total duration of 5 days between the two different locations. This would be for replacement of city lighting around the courthouse.
Questions from the board on this? What are do we have the dates?
They typically operate under a span of time and letting us know when they're going to actually execute that. So they'll give us a 2-month window, but my understanding is they're wanting to get it in sooner rather than later, so I would expect the next couple of months.
Any other questions from the board? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right. Is there a motion?
I I move that we approve lane and sidewalk closure on West Kirkwood and North College for Duke Energy.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next, we have road and sidewalk closure on East Weymouth Lane and North Park Ridge Road for Coco Singh Industrial.
Yes, this is a project to upgrade some of the lift stations in those two areas. CBU has contracted Cacao Singh Industrial. They have supplied sufficient maintenance of traffic plan for the work. They also plan to hold meetings ahead of the work starting with the residents. They've also agreed to maintain private access to all of their drives and the ability to traverse the roadways to get those folks in and out as needed. They're also coordinating with emergency service, transit providers, the dates that they're looking for. The Weymouth is going to be January 1st through February 28th, and then Park Ridge, we're looking at February 17th through April 21st of 2025. Yeah, happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks. Questions from the board? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the road and sidewalk closure on East Weymouth Lane and North Park Ridge Road for Cacao Singh Industrial.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, we have contract for Morton Street and Walnut Street garages waterproofing with Browning Chapman.
Hi, Jessica Goodman, Parking Garage Manager. This contract is for the Morton and Walnut Street repairs and waterproofing. The big ticket items on this list is the barrier cables repair at the Morton Street Garage, the Techcrete waterproofing for the Morton and Walnut Street Garage, and the stairwell repairs and painting. Browning and Chapman came in at a bid at $397,400.
Thank you. Questions on this item? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for Morton Street and Walnut Street garages waterproofing with Browning Chapman.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next, we have contract with 4th Street Garage IT room repairs with Browning Chapman.
All right, Jessica Goodman, Parking Garage Manager. This is for the IT room located on the second floor of 4th Street Garage. We had an issue with water infiltration in that room. CE Solutions did an assessment of repairs for that. Browning and Chapman put in a bid for $19,600. Any questions on that?
Questions on this item? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for 4th Street Garage IT room repairs with Browning Chapman.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Next is the contract for Kirkwood Sidewalk Project.
Good evening. I'm Waste on behalf of Joe Van Devender, our Director of Street Operations. So this is a contract with Wise Building Solutions in an amount not to exceed $240,115,000 for the Kirkwood Sidewalk Maintenance Project. We'll be removing and replacing brick pavers with a colored stamped concrete in various locations along Kirkwood Avenue, mainly between Indiana and Dunn and Grant and Lincoln. So we won't start this until after IU graduation of May 15th. Project won't start before May 15th, and we would award to Wise Building Solutions in the amount of $240,115. Request your approval.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
Adam answered most of my questions about the locations, but will we see additional contracts for additional
Yes, so
blocks
this
in
is,
the
this is
future?
a very phased approach. So we're starting with the areas of Kirkwood brick sidewalks that are most damaged, pose the most trip hazards. So we'll be starting with that, and then year by year, working our way, continuing west towards the courthouse square, et cetera.
Thank you.
Do you know about how long the project will take for this phase?
I believe,
as it's-
I was looking at that. I think it's a 90-day.
90-day for the sections outlined here.
Yes, I believe so. Let me confirm that. Do you recall seeing that? We originally had talked about 90 days.
Okay. I was just,
Actually, it's got a 360. All work has to be completed within a year, but that also includes some tree work.
right. Yeah, I was just thinking about, for the board, to be cognizant of that project as it relates to the various festivals
Yep.
that will be in the area, and just thinking about, how that is
Yep.
disclosed or planned going forward, which I know will be top of your mind as well, but something for, economic and sustainable development to think about too when there are special programs or projects happening.
So we've been keeping the Kirkwood Community Association and others apprised of the project and what our plans are. It will have impacts with possible Grand Falloon. There is also talk of a reincarnation of the Taste of Bloomington, and that may be proposed for Kirkwood. That's the preferred location right now for a rejuvenated Taste of Bloomington. And so this is forefront of our mind as we talk about these things. The block between Indiana and Dunn, so this is on the north side of Kirkwood, the Von Lee Theater area, People's Park. There's a large section there that'll be redone with new tree plots and everything. And so we do plan to try to we will be prioritizing that part of the project. The part of the project around the library that we're doing is just traditional concrete replacement, so it's not the stamped concrete as much. And so so we're cognizant of those, and definitely trying to keep this in mind with all the festivals and such. Pride Fest, I mean, if it were to go into the fall, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, I would just say I am delighted to see this. As someone who walks that stretch quite a bit, it's definitely needed, and it's going to be a huge improvement in safety and maintenance and a whole bunch of other elements. So I'm excited that it's happening, and even though it may infringe a bit on some of those activities for this particular summer, hopefully people will find it to be pretty accommodating once it's
As
done.
someone, for anyone that knows me well, at work or outside of work, knows I have very few carpentry skills, but I can replace bricks on Kirkwood, and I would like to do less of that in the
You've
future.
had a lot of practice, I suspect. Yeah. All right, any other questions on this?
I was just thinking about the start date, making sure it's after IU's commencement, but
It
it
is.
looks like the start
Yeah,
date is May
that's the
15th, which
intent.
is intentional. Great, thank you.
Quick question.
Please.
Lifespan of the coloring in stamped concrete. I know in the past it had worn and it wasn't always, didn't keep the color. Has that technology gotten better?
I honestly couldn't answer that question for you, Joe, James, but I did talk with Joe Van Deventer, our street superintendent, and Tony Carroll, our sidewalk supervisor, and they were confident after talking with the contractor that this is definitely the best way to go into the future to try to maintain some character of the sidewalks beyond the traditional, but yet get away from the actual bricks. So I didn't have any issue, or they didn't have any issue with it, and we'll just confirm.
All right, thank you.
Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for the Kirkwood Sidewalk Project.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Crone.
Aye.
Roach.
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is contract for fire stations 2, 4, and 5 renovations.
J.D. Borth, Public Works Facilities. This contract is for renovations at fire stations 2, 4, and 5. At fire stations 2 and 5, we will be converting single-gender multi-user bathrooms into several single-user gender-neutral bathrooms. At Station 2, we'll also be doing gutter and downspout repair, extensive exterior painting, and some flooring replacements. And we'll be at Station 4, we'll be replacing the concrete apron on the east side of the building. We received the 3 quotes that are listed in your staff report. The lowest responsible bidder was Strasser Construction at $323,800, and we recommend approval of a contract with Strasser for that amount.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Any public comments on this item? All right. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for fire stations 2, 4, and 5 renovations.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Corone.
Aye.
Roach.
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is the contract for City Hall renovations.
J.D. Borth again. This contract is to renovate the HR suite and the legal suite here at City Hall, basically subdividing the existing space to create more offices for additional staff members. And it will also include construction of a lactation room in the employee break area. The lowest responsible bidder for this work was Weddle Brothers Building Group at $166,000. And we recommend approval of contract with Weddle Brothers for that amount.
All right, questions from the board on this item? I'm curious, was Ancris informed that they were disqualified before they actually submitted
No.
bid?
When we had the meeting, they actually appeared before everybody had dispersed for the meeting, and I wasn't sure how to proceed, to be honest with you. I allowed them to sign into the meeting and submit a quote, and then the legal department made the determination that they didn't properly attend and participate in the pre-bid meeting, which was a requirement of the bid documents, and so their bid was disqualified.
Okay. And of course, I ask this question because right now the board is unclear as to whether Ancris was the lowest
They
bidder.
were actually the low bidder.
So then
We're in the same boat as
this would require the same
Yes.
disclosure.
I don't know if you have the 378 from legal.
No, I'm on the, I don't think so.
Sorry, I was taking Alex's time or something else, so I'm thinking she's getting caught up in the back of the room right now.
Okay. So, let's see,
And just to clarify too, the participation was in the administrative part of the contracting work with the city and going through all the bid documents and actually a walkthrough of the facilities to go over all the repairs. And they didn't attend either of those portions of the meeting. So.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Any public comments on this item? All right. Is there a motion on this item?
Let's try this again. I move that we approve the contract for City Hall renovations to Weddle Brothers after the lowest bidder failed to complete the bid specifications. I need to write down the exact language you want me to use.
Sorry, this is a little tricky. So this bidder actually did not comply with the second factor per the statute, and that is whether the bidder has submitted a bid that complies specifically with the invitation to bid and the instructions to bidders. because the invitation to bid and instructions said you need to attend a pre-bid mandatory meeting, they did not comply with the second factor.
So if I say did not comply with the instructions for the bid process, does that,
Instructions to bidders, yes.
to bidders? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let's try this again. I move that we approve the contract for City Hall renovations to Weddle Brothers because the lowest bidder did not comply with instructions to bidders.
Second.
All right, I will call, I will call the roll. Corone,
Aye.
Roach,
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is contract for Showers City Hall lighting installation.
J.D. Borf again. The Economic Sustainable Development Department and Public Works Facilities worked with Donovan Energy to develop a scope for replacing all the lighting in City Hall, basically, with high efficiency, dimmable, multi-spectrum LED lighting. We advertised and issued an RFP. We received 3 quotes, or 3 proposals, as are listed in the staff report. The highest scoring proposal, according to our matrix that we use to judge the proposals, was Novasol Energy, and they submitted a proposal with a total price of $254,000, and we recommend approval of a contract with them for that amount.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Any public comments on this item? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for Showers City Hall lighting installation.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Corone,
Aye.
Roach,
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is the contract for custodial services 2025 with Office Pride.
Yes, this is the service agreement for custodial services at all public works facilities. We issued an RFP and went through the statutory process for that. We received 1 responsible proposal. That was from SSW Enterprises, LLC, for $240,000 for the year 2025. And we recommend approval of a contract with them for that amount.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for custodial services 2025 with Office Pride.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Corone,
Aye.
Roach,
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Contract for repairs at 2541 West 3rd Street.
J.D. Borf again with Public Works. This is the property at 2541 West 3rd that we discussed at the staff, or the work session yesterday. It was slated for demolition, but Hand has shown interest in attaining the property, and we decided to use the funds slated for demolition to make needed repairs to the property to make it, stabilize it, and make it weather tight. We had 2 walkthrough meetings and solicited contractors to attend those meetings, and we had 1 responsible bid for the project from Rogers Remodeling LLC for $61,561.50. And just as a side, your question yesterday about the ultimate fate of this property, I spoke with Christina Finley and Hand today. They still haven't made a decision on what they ultimately want to do with this property, whether they want to redevelop it or sell it and use the proceeds for some other program or project. That decision will be made after the first of the year by Hand.
All right, questions from the board?
Let me just add to that.
Yeah.
The only additional thing that I'd like to add there is that whatever the desired outcome is, whether they sell it or there will be affordable covenants that are attached to it. So it will be required to be an affordable housing unit.
That was one question I was going to ask is it currently zoned residential?
Yes.
And it's residential. It's
Yeah.
not a property that could be converted to some other
Zone
use.
3 commercial type, no, this is intended to be a residential property into the future with these repairs with an affordable covenant. Some of the history, I'm sorry I wasn't at the work session yesterday, but part of the history here is this property was purchased as part of the 2008 West 3rd reconstruction project. This is when they did the expansion of West 3rd with the vegetation and the medians and such. And so this property, when they purchased the right-of-way to create the expanded bus station and some other things, was a full purchase instead of just a partial purchase of the property. So the whole property became, the home as well as the rest of the property became city property at that time. It was used as a construction office for a while, storage for a while, but now we're just looking at everything on our books and saying, how can we turn these back into better uses? So the intent here is definitely affordable housing unit with the covenants attached to, whether it's an agreement with a property management firm or such, or if it's an actual outright sale to a property owner for affordable housing into the future.
Very good. Other questions on this item? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for repairs at 2541 West 3rd Street.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Have a good
Thanks.
evening.
Next is Infrastructure Management Systems Asset Condition Field Reconnaissance Survey and Reporting Project.
Hello, Nate Nickel, Public Works Department. And this is a field reconnaissance project with Infrastructure Management Systems, or IMS, and it will assess the current asset conditions for the street division, and it is a citywide assessment of infrastructure. It builds on our previous efforts in 2018 and 2021. The 2021 effort was done by IMS as well, so the same vendor. Information will be collected via field inspections and LiDAR, which is the laser technology in imaging, where they'll have a vehicle drive all the city streets. It's kind of like a Google Images van to collect data. And what they're looking for is pavement condition index, which is a 0 to 100 scale, 0 being the worst, 100 being the best possible condition of the pavement. The state recommends we do this every 3 years. They want an asset management plan, so this is definitely in line with that. So we're looking for PCI assessments in this project for pavements on streets, alleys, and side paths. And additionally, we're doing a sidewalk-specific survey, and we're excited about this. It's the first ever really detailed assessment we've had of sidewalks. The previous efforts were summaries where it would just essentially be a street drive-by, and they'd be able to give us kind of a ballpark idea, but this will be PCI level assessment of sidewalks. And they'll have a ATV vehicle drive and do that on the sidewalks. As we talked about yesterday, we'll certainly look into all the right-of-way needs there as far as permits or anything like that for encroachment. But the ATV will have a high-resolution camera and be able to get us some pretty good details on that. And that really plays into with our sidewalk planning efforts and things that we're looking forward to doing in the future. So the ATV will collect sidewalk information, curb ramps, sidewalk transition aprons, which are from sidewalks into alleys. And we're also going to look at the condition of street signs and the support structures for the street signs. So at the end of this project, IMS will give us some detailed reports of data for these street assets. They'll also be able to provide the mayor and city council with a virtual presentation of the data they've collected. And this is a heavy lift for staff otherwise, so we're happy about this as well, that they'll upload the data that they collect into both the GIS mapping software and the asset management software. So that'll give us good record keeping on that. And once we're all through with the project, just like we did in the last two efforts, it'll be all posted on the Be Clear data portal, so it will be available to the public. And in the past, and we're looking to do this again too, there'll be a map viewer, and just all the reports will be online, so anyone can check it out. Staff recommends approval, and happy to answer any questions if you have some.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
Just quickly, I know you talked about this in the work session yesterday, but when's the last time that this project was done, or that the sidewalks and the streets were mapped like this?
So it was approved by the Board of Public Works in 2021, but the data was done in 2022, the data collection. So
Okay.
we're right at about that time when we need to refresh it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this item? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve with Infrastructure Management Systems, the Asset Condition Field Reconnaissance Survey and Reporting Project.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next up is MOU with CBU for periodic utility infrastructure repairs.
Good evening, Adam Mason, Public Works Director. So this is a memorandum of understanding between the City of Bloomington Utilities and their Utility Service Board and the City of Bloomington Public Works and the Board of Public Works. This is an agreement in which the City of Bloomington Utilities will coordinate the final repair of public infrastructure with the street division for things like final sidewalk or pavement repairs associated with underground work that CBU is doing for things like water main breaks, sewer repairs, et cetera. The whole thought process behind this is the City of Bloomington Utilities is really good at transmission of water and repairing those water lines. They're really good at transmission of sewage and repairing those sewer lines, whereas the City Street Division has, responsibility with road and sidewalk repair as part of their daily mission. So it was kind of a natural partnership to try with a pilot program. So this has some terms of agreement between the Utility Service Board and the Board of Public Works, in which the CBU will be funding 4 positions. This is a crew leader, a operator, and 2 laborers to do this work. In addition to that, with our asset management systems, we'll be able to bill all material costs directly back to the utility. So they'll pay the material and the labor costs for the repairs, and we'll do those for them. So it's a good partnership and a good pilot project to see how it works for the next year. And we would request your approval of this MOU.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
One question. I think you answered it, Adam, when you mentioned the titles. But my question is, will these be 4 dedicated people, or are we talking about 4 full-time equivalents?
So this will be 4 full-time employees of the street division. And so the thought process behind this is, well, will they spend all of their time working on utility-related things? There's 2 parts to that answer. One is no, and one is kind of. In addition to, if they just have if the utility needs to go in and make a sewer lateral repair that is a 6x6 excavation, and they'll get it to the 2-inch with the flowable fill, and then we'll come back and do the final asphalt. So those types of things. Currently, and the way it's been working is they're primarily spending the vast majority of their time on this. What's making up for the difference there is there will be times where we will do larger scale paving projects for water main replacement projects. So we did a major project out in the stands north of Rogers Road and west of Sarah Road this year, where that neighborhood had a full water main replacement project on many of their streets that needed full repaving. So we spent about 2 to 3, actually we spent about a full work week with our entire paving crew there. So the thought process is, If they're only paying for 4, but we use 16 for a week, that's the offset we're looking at. And the good part of this agreement and what we're doing with our asset management system is we're able to track all costs. So we'll be able to know that the 4-person crew headed up by Jake, as the crew leader, is spending X amount or percentage of their time throughout the entire year on these types of repairs, but then what also the full labor cost of the larger scale water main replacement paving projects are. So that's part of what we're going to be tracking with this partnership, and for consideration of any future agreements if we continue it.
Thank you.
2 quick questions.
Yep.
You mentioned that this is a pilot program. Are these 4 positions being hired temporarily, or these are permanent positions?
When I say pilot, as long as it works, we're just going to continue into the, I mean, everything's working up until this point. When I say pilot, it's more of, these are the initial years of the agreement. This is, and so, yes, they are permanent full-time employees. The intent is to continue this well into the future, and that we wouldn't do away with these positions. I kind of think of it as this: if by chance, for some reason or another, after the term of this agreement, it was decided not to continue it, CBU is going to have to come back and do this work themselves again. This is work they've always done in the past. So there would be 4 very qualified people that could transfer over if that ever were to happen, but the intent is to do this in perpetuity into the future.
Okay. And my second question, has this already gone before the Utility
Yes.
Service Board, and they
Yes.
have approved
They
it?
approved it at their meeting Monday night.
Great. Thank you.
And let me actually just clarify one, back to your comment about, or question about the pilot program. The pilot's been what's ongoing right now. We've been doing this work for the last several months. So that's been the part of like, oh, is this working? And it was just kind of an internal departmental agreement. We're formalizing it with this.
I don't have any other questions. I was just going to offer a comment that I think this is a really smart way to do this work. And I'm glad to see this type of agreement, when you have a street department that is ready to be able to do these kinds of repairs or repaving or whatever it is that is needed, that they can focus on that and have this work out between the departments, I think makes a lot of sense.
I'll just provide a final comment to say that anytime 2 city departments can partner to the benefit of both departments, it makes great sense and is good government. The tricky part here is you've got CBU as a ratepayer-supported city department, which has some of its own, not challenges, but uniqueness of it. They're not just your typical city department. There is some other aspects to it. So working with the Utility Service Board and the Utilities Administration team, this type of partnership just makes sense. But there's a lot of other areas we can explore too. I very much look forward to the day when we're talking about shared equipment and pooled resources in some of those regards. And these are just kind of some of the first steps to open up to bigger conversations, I think.
Great. Any public comments on this item? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the MOU with CBU for periodic utility infrastructure repairs.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Crone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is contract for paving projects, Smith Road, Hagan Street, Kingston Drive with E&B Paving LLC.
Again, Adam Wason, Public Works Director. So we solicited bids for the paving of Smith Road, Hagan Street, and Kingston Drive. We opened those bids yesterday. And the E&B Paving LLC was determined to be the lowest responsive and reasonable bidder. And we request that you approve a contract with E&B Paving in the amount of $375,573 for this paving project.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Any public comments on this item?
No comments on Zoom.
All right, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for paving projects, Smith Road, Hagan Street, and Kingston Drive with E&B Paving LLC.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Crone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. All right, it must be time for staff reports.
To do something we don't often do. We had an oversight on the new business agenda for one additional contract. And so what I'm going to ask for you to consider is adding an additional agenda item via a motion of the board. So what I put in front of you is this is another good partnership. The Board of Parks Commissioners approved this contract at their last meeting. And this is a contract for landscaping services for, I think it's 24 of the downtown planters around the courthouse square. So for the last year plus, we've been having conversations with the Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Bloomington, Inc., and business owners and visitors about refreshing the planters that are around the square and down Kirkwood to be something that is more visually pleasing and creates less of turn radius issues with tall plants. So for the last several months, the Parks Department, with their landscaping crew headed up by Joanna Sparks, has been working on an RFP. They had a submittal for contracted services based on that RFP from Nature's Way. And I gave you all the printed copies, and I don't actually have this open. Do you? There we go. Okay, so we've been working very closely with Tim Street, the Parks Director, and Joanna Sparks, the Urban Green Space Manager, on this. It's 14 planters around the courthouse square. Sorry, we started with many more and pared it back. So this contract would be with Nature's Way and the amount not to exceed $150,965.25. The funding, the reason this is coming to the Board of Public Works, this is going to be a project managed by the Parks Department, but we are funding it through the parking meter fund, and that is in Public Works budget. If I, as the Public Works Director, could think of a good usage of the parking meter fund, downtown beautification would be one of the top things that we could do with it, among other things like road resurfacing and infrastructure projects. And so we've been working on this, and in the typical end-of-year fashion of trying to get everything out the door and encumbered and making sure we have funding lined up, this one, I dropped the ball on making sure this one got on the agenda. So that's my apology. What I can say, it's been vetted through the Controller's Office, the Mayor's Office, the Board of Parks Commissioners, and we all agree that this is a good use of the funding and a good use of and a good project for the downtown. So in the largest planters around around basically three sides of the square, there's a few planters on CFC Fountain Square side that are going to remain CFC maintained. But if you think of the southwest and northwest corner of Kirkwood and southbound College, the northwest, southwest corners of 6th and southbound College, the interior corners of the courthouse square at 6th and College on the east side, and northeast and southeast side, and then further over on Walnut, those same corners as well, Kirkwood and 6th. Those planters are all what we think, from my historical quizzing of longtime city staff members, is that those planters are original from the 70s. When we've done some reconnaissance, the fill dirt is lacking in quality, might I say, among other things. So this is a full dig everything out, get all the old material out, and start from scratch with new topsoil, new mulch, new plantings. It also includes maintenance, and it includes annual maintenance costs as well into the future with Nature's Way. And so the reason we've gone this route, is the urban landscape division of the Parks Department has had staffing challenges for many years. Those are temporary positions, mostly in the summer months, and elements that a lot of folks don't really want to work within. And so they've had some staffing challenges, and we thought, what better way to have a partnership. You've got a good local company like Nature's Way, you've got parks that can manage it, and you got Public Works that can fund it through the parking meter fund. So that's where we're at this evening. We're still debating whether we're going to need an end-of-year meeting for the Board of Public Works, and the timing doesn't line up perfectly for this because we have some 2024 funds that are going to be encumbered as part of it. Again, vetted through the Parks Commissioners, the Controller, the Mayor's Office, legal, and others, and just an oversight on my end to get it on the agenda today. So if you would be so inclined to entertain a motion to add it to the agenda, we could then jump in and treat it like an actual agenda item, if that would be the pleasure of the board.
First, let's add it to the agenda.
Why don't we do that?
Open it up, unless you have a question about the process.
Yes.
Which you can go ahead and ask.
So my background, of course, is in planning, and we had very specific legal requirements of having things notified so many days before a meeting. Is there any concern with that here?
In speaking with the legal representation, no. We always have the ability to add items to the agenda, and that's what we're requesting this evening. I would feel less comfortable if another city commission had not reviewed all of this, had it not been published through that, had it not already received some public discourse and conversation. But given the overall circumstances of it, I don't see any reason we couldn't approve this tonight.
Okay, thank you.
And if we do approve it in error, we'll step it back, but I don't have any fear of that.
Is there a motion for adding this item to the agenda?
I move that we add as tonight's agenda item number 22, the 2025 Downtown Planter Improvement Project.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any public comments on this item? For adding it to the agenda? None on Zoom. All right, seeing none, I will call the roll. Crone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Coxdecker, aye. The item is now on the agenda as item number 22. So we've received preliminary staff report. Is there anything else from staff?
No, so the staff report received from Joanna Sparks outlines a lot of the details of the project, and then you also have the contract that's been approved by the Board of Parks Commissioners in front of you as well. I could rehash a lot of what I've already said, but the meeting minutes will reflect what I've already described. Again, in the end, we're asking for approval of the contract in the amount not to exceed $150,535, if my memory serves me correct. That's exactly what I meant to say out loud.
It's like maintenance is included in this cost for a period of 12 months after completion, but then there would be an additional cost on top of the not to exceed for extending maintenance services for an additional 12-month period.
Exactly. So the thought process here is they'll work this spring to get everything installed. There will be a 12-month warranty and maintenance built into this cost. And then as it's possible that we want to continue with maintenance into the future, it all kind of depends on how everything takes root, how the Parks Department feels from a staffing perspective. One of the lines of thought here is we're making this investment in the courthouse square, and it'll alleviate some of the staffing pressures on parks right now by having the maintenance be part of this contract. They'd then be able to focus more on the Kirkwood corridor with the staff that would have been focusing on the courthouse square as well, make some internal improvements there to those, planters that are not as old as the ones around the square, and see if that meets our needs on Kirkwood and the square. And then if all goes well, we would hope that we would take over maintenance in 2026 because it's established, and then it's more just weeding. But we're gonna gauge that over the course of the next year. And again, with the funding, we would in subsequent budget years, And even for 2025, we have specific lines within the parking meter funds that are geared towards downtown beautification. And so if we did want to continue with maintenance or additional locations possibly in the future, that's the same funding source we'd look for.
Great.
And that was going to be one of my questions was, since it is the parking meter fund, that there is not another pressing need that needs to come out of the parking meter fund, that this is sort of taking the place of. It sounds like instead, there actually is an existing line for these types of projects that we've held for an intentional purpose.
Yes, absolutely. So we had $100,000 in our 2024 and our 2025 budget geared towards downtown beautification projects through the parking meter fund. We knew last year that we were looking at possible vegetation type projects like this one. We were possibly looking at some additional lighting or mural type projects. It was open-ended, general beautification type projects within these categories. And so it definitely fits that need and that intent of the program, of the budgets. And again, like I said, if we were to continue, we'd continue to look towards that fund. It's one of our healthier funds. Just to share with the board as we're talking about this, we've got a major parking study that we're going to be bringing a contract forward in front of you early in 2025 to review all aspects of parking services downtown. And that's then going to really inform us on some of our next major investments on what type of technology should we use for metered parking, what type of, that's where that fund would then be looked at for those bigger, larger capital investments. And if we bond for, if we use cash balances, those different conversations. But right now, it's a healthy balance.
Okay, great.
Couple questions.
Yep.
Another question about maintenance. Is there any type of maintenance that wouldn't be included? I'm thinking about if one of the planters gets full of trash, that's probably someone else going to be doing that. Or, I regularly see water trucks during, dry seasons. Is that this company or is that Parks?
Yep. So any of these planters, the watering, the general maintenance of weeding, typical bed maintenance is going to fall to this contract.
Okay.
Our downtown specialists, Zach Souders and the Brighton B-Town crews and their regular passes, if they were to see someone, not that this has ever happened in our downtown, but several red Solo cups get dropped into the same planter on a Saturday evening, we're going to do some of that general litter type removal just as part of the normal course of our business. And such. And, if someone ripped, what wouldn't be covered? If someone intentionally vandalized, if the big delivery truck took the corner too tight and damaged a planter in the plantings, that's going to be an insurance claim at that point. So the general maintenance, yes. Outside circumstances beyond our control, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then the second question I have, you mentioned the age of the planters. And they look like they're from the 1970s.
Yep.
And they don't fit into any of the other streetscaping the
Yep.
city's done. What's the long-term future of these
So,
planters?
as the Public Works Director, one of my initial focuses was Kirkwood. We did a lot with Kirkwood, with the repaving, with the bollards, with the, we also have a College and Walnut corridor study that's being headed up by the Planning Department right now with contracts that this board has approved in the past. And so depending on how the results of that study and others, it's going to inform us on our next steps around the square. My dream, my dream as the Public Works Director is to take that next big step in terms of, we'll be informed by the transportation plan aspects of the College and Walnut corridor studies. But then the next step of that also is the streetscape and the streetscape design and major streetscape projects. So if we think back to the late 90s in Bloomington, that's when the Kirkwood Streetscape project happened, the original brick sidewalks and things. And those planters are from then. These planters around the square are definitely dated to the 70s with that marbled,
Pebble,
you know.
stuck pebble.
But yeah, you know, and so we know we're not at a place where we are making major streetscape design decisions at this point. This is for the next several years to make sure we've got a beautiful, attractive downtown with the vegetation, and then take that next big step. I also will just share that in a conversation this weekend, I referred to the beautiful pavement downtown, and and the guy looked at me and said, "I don't know that I've ever heard anybody refer to pavement as beautiful." And I was like, "Well, that's
Public
me."
Works, yes.
Just because, you know, and it's known, you know. So those planters are dated. We just put brand new pavement down. We've got some major corridor studies. So I'm guessing it's the 5 to 10 year plan on the actual planters themselves.
Thank you.
So first of all, in defense of the planters, I just want to say I have very nostalgic, warm, fuzzy feelings about those very old
I
planters.
mean, they just need to be
so-
next to some like 70s shag carpet.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my life, those planters. Me and those planters, we're the same age. Okay, you mentioned the planters that CFC tends to. Is that like an adopt a planter agreement, or is that, do they sort of take unofficial or official ownership of those planters? I'm just curious because they may, like, here, I know they have very specific desires for those planters, so
Yeah.
I suspect they're going to want to continue having those be in the same style as the rest of their planting, which is possibly maintained by the same company.
I do believe you may be correct there, yes.
So I'm just curious if there is the chance that we may also need to revisit that agreement because of this agreement, if they would come forward and say, you know what, the city could take care of these planters too.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about like any changes that might need to be made if we realize we need to tend to an additional planter.
So Parks staff had the conversations with CFC representatives throughout this. The intent is to more closely align with what they tend to look like around Fountain Square throughout the year. More, you know, annuals that are going to be with pretty flowers. And I don't want to, I'm going to choose my words carefully here because I'm not a urban green space expert or anything, but, or a plant expert, but.
You were just talking about how beautiful the pavement is, so that goes without saying, but.
So the intent is to kind of more closely match or mirror what's occurring with those CFC type planters, where it's going to be more of the seasonal and the more annual type plantings that have a more, and I'll just say it, that are more attractive visually than some of your native plants like milkweed and honey, you know. I'll get way out of my league here quickly, so I'll stop. But, so that's the intent, is to make it more of a visually attractive. When we were talking, and so that has been part of the conversation. They're not, the intent here is for the planters on the north side of the square not to clash with the planters on the south side of the square that CFC maintains. I believe that's just been an informal agreement for many, 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 many years and multiple decades now, where they have agreed and wanted to maintain those to what we inherently call the Cook standard. And they've done that wonderfully for many, many years, and so we're trying to more closely align with that. And so I don't have any fear that if something were to come up that we wouldn't be able to overcome with some modifications to a contract or some language or general agreements.
Okay, very good. And I just wanted to note, in considering this, that this area is very much in the parking meter overlay, if you will. And I'm assuming that that would be for beautification purposes. The areas under consideration would be those areas that have parking meter installation.
Yes, so there are very strict state standards and state code that that outlines exactly how parking meter funds can be spent. For instance, they can't necessarily be used for maintenance activities, which we've found out over time. I would love to So there's very, very well-defined parameters in which parking meter funds can be spent, both for what type of expenditures and where. So it's got to be within the parking meter areas of the parking meters or adjacent to. So there is some adjacency language about it, but yes, very much in line and within state code for how those can be expended.
One more question. And this is general. So this is the planner improvement project, which includes a contract. And then a while back, Nate's presented to us the field reconnaissance survey and reporting project that had a contract. And those are different than some of the other contracts where we do with the bids. What's different between this sort of contracting and contracting where we have we're opening bids and presenting to the lowest bidder?
So this was done through an RFP.
Okay.
So I'll get into the weeds here a little bit without trying to over-explain this. We have many different purchasing parameters that we can use. We have many different ways in which we can make a purchase of products or services as city entities, whether they're dictated by state code for public works projects, which are very specific, or if they are held to the standards of our own internal purchasing policies through the controller's office. And so some of the differentiation here. You asked about the IMS, the Infrastructure Management System Asset Condition Field Reconnaissance Survey and Reporting Project. The difference between that and the contract that I'm asking you to consider today, they're done under two different purchasing parameters that we have access to. With the IMS project, we actually use what's called a sole source purchasing justification. And that was done because IMS was the vendor on that same project last time. They have cooperative purchasing agreement pricing, so we have the ability to use a lot of different cooperative purchasing agreements nationwide for municipalities, so that when you're buying police cars, you get them at a set price. And so services like the IMS project, elevator replacements we did under a cooperative purchasing agreement. So they met the cooperative purchasing agreement standards. We then said, hey, they're our preferred vendor right now. They did the project last time. They did a really good job. They're going to get the same data set for us. They're going to be able to use the same AMI. Is that when you transfer from one software program to another?
API.
API. So we were able to justify that it made sense to use them as a vendor. With this project, the Parks Department went through an actual request for proposals. So they did an RFP, said, hey, any landscape companies in Bloomington that might be interested in this, here's a request for what we would like to be done. You need to attend this pre-bid meeting, then you're going to have to meet these standards for the bid documents. And so this was done through the RFP process. For our major paving projects, those are bid processes. Here are the bid specifications, here's the timeline in which it needs to be done, and it's in excess of this amount. It needs to be bid. There's also a quote process for projects that are smaller in scale. So maybe at the next maybe in a work session in January, we would ask the controller's team to come and explain all of this, because what I'll tell you in my now 9th year, going on 10th year as the Public Works Director, I don't make any purchase. I don't put my signature on any purchase until Julie Long, the purchasing manager, has signed off, the controller has signed off, and Alex in the back has signed off. So there's multiple check marks on all of those, but to actually get the flow chart of if this amount, this is a quote, if this amount, it's a bid, if an RFP is done, this is what it means, and here's where our sole source is. So, yeah, I'd be happy to go through all of that. And now that I've added 12 minutes to your meeting.
I wasn't keeping track. All right, any other questions on this item? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the 2025 Downtown Planter Improvement Project.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Carone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. All right, next up is staff reports and other business.
Public Works Director. I will be brief here. And first, I want to just start off with a thank you and a kudos to the woman on my left. That's Miranda Beaver. If you couldn't tell, this packet had a lot in it, and I'm thankful for Miranda and Alex and all of the team's efforts to get these meetings put together. It's a heavy lift. It's a lot of coordination at the end of the year when we've got a lot of end-of-year stuff going on. So just want to recognize the effort that goes into that. And if anybody wanted to job shadow the board packet process, it's about it's a 2-week process. So, tomorrow starts the next packet, basically, and it's a heavy lift. So I want to say thank you to Miranda and make sure that is in the meeting minutes. And then just want to wish everybody a happy holiday season. We're winding down 2024. We're looking forward to 2025, continuing to do the good things in Public Works, and just want to say thank you to the three of you for your service to the community through this board. It's an important one. We do good stuff, and we try to do it the right way. So thank you.
Well, thank you for all of your work over this past year. It's been a very full year. Quick question, and not to put you on the spot because I think this is coming out of a different department, but I saw a little murmuring.
I blame Parks.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
sorry,
actually
wait.
not Parks, but it is an emerging program called Snow Buddies that it looks like there's some circulating information, like as of maybe today. I think this is very fresh
I
information.
only saw this because of you, so I'm having to pull up Facebook.
Yeah, go to my Facebook page. And I haven't, had a chance to really digest the information fully myself, but it looks like the city is seeking both people who might want to volunteer to support clearing, sidewalks that are maintained by homeowners or property owners of people who have disabilities, who may not be able to clear their sidewalks, and then people who are in that position could also file to get a snow buddy. And I don't know, I saw it on Bloomington Transit's.
Yep. So the City of Bloomington Council for Community Accessibility, the CCA, headed up with Michael Shermis and the Community and Family Resources Department, is working together on this Snow Buddies program, and you're exactly right. It's matching someone that may have some physical challenges clearing their sidewalks with someone that's able to assist. So it's a partnership. It's a two-way partnership. So sign up if you want to help to be a snow clearer, and sign up if you need that assistance. You can find that through the Community Council for Accessibility's Facebook page and bloomington.in.gov/CCA.
Great. Thank you for quickly assembling that information. All right. Next up is approval of claims. Are there any questions on the claims? Any public comments on claims?
None on Zoom.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve claims tonight in the amount of $2,614,611.28.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Crone.
Aye.
Roach.
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. And seeing that there is nothing else on the agenda, I will call for adjournment.